Dr. Hannah Kim stared at the readings on her computer screen with tired eyes. It was 2:00 a.m., and the quantum propulsion laboratory was quiet except for the gentle hum of machines. She pushed her dark hair away from her face and sipped her cold coffee. For 3 years, she had led this small team at Seoul National University, working on making spacecraft engines more efficient. Not faster than light, just better than what existed now. Dr. Kim, you're still here. Ta Park appeared in the doorway, his lab coat wrinkled from a long day. Just checking yesterday's results again, Hannah said. Something doesn't look right in the energy output graphs. Ta nodded and walked to his workstation. Despite being told to go home hours ago, he was as dedicated as Hannah. His quantum field stabilizer project had shown promise last month. A small but meaningful improvement in engine efficiency that might save a few percentage points of fuel on long space missions. I think I can recalibrate the field parameters tonight, Ta said, powering up his equipment. Maybe we'll get better numbers. Hannah nodded and returned to her data. Their lab wasn't impressive. Outdated equipment, a budget that barely covered their basic needs, and a team of just 5 researchers. The big aerospace companies and government labs got the spotlight and the money. Places like theirs just did the quiet work nobody noticed. An hour later, Hannah was startled by a shout from Ta's station. Dr. Kim, something's wrong with the stabilizer. She rushed over to see the quantum field stabilizer glowing with an unusual blue light. The readings on Ta's screen were unlike anything she had seen before. What did you do? She asked, not accusingly but with scientific curiosity. I misaligned the primary quantum field generator, Ta admitted. I was tired and connected the wrong inputs. I was about to shut it down when this happened. The energy signature coming from the small device should have shown failure. Instead, the quantum fields were interacting in ways that defied conventional physics. Hannah quickly began recording all the data, her heart racing. Don't touch anything, she whispered. Let's see what's happening here. By morning, they had gathered enough data to know this wasn't a fluke. They had accidentally created a localized bubble where the normal rules of physics were bending. Not breaking. The universe wouldn't allow that, but bending in ways that theoretical physicists had only dreamed about. Do you know what this might mean? Hannah asked as their other team members began arriving. Ta nodded, his eyes wide. If we can control it, we might have just found a way around the light speed barrier. Over the next weeks, they worked in near secrecy, not because they were trying to hide their discovery, but because they couldn't believe it themselves. They needed proof before making claims that would sound ridiculous to the scientific community. Professor Jin, the department head, noticed their unusual hours and stopped by one evening. You two are working too hard, he said, looking concerned. What's so important that you're sleeping on loud couches? Hannah hesitated, then decided to trust her mentor. Professor Jin, we need to show you something, but you must keep it confidential until we're certain. The older man watched in silent amazement as they demonstrated their accidental discovery. The quantum field bubble they had created allowed small particles to move in ways that seemed to violate relativity. Have you told anyone else? He asked quietly. No, Hannah said. Who would believe us without solid proof? Professor Jin nodded. Continue your work. I'll arrange for more resources, quietly. Some extra equipment from other departments, perhaps a small increase in your funding that won't raise eyebrows. 3 months of sleepless nights followed. The team grew to include Min, a brilliant theoretical physicist, and Sung, an engineer with skills in miniaturization. They worked around the clock, testing, failing, and trying again. And then, one ordinary Tuesday at 3:17 p.m., they succeeded. The first functional, faster-than-light drive prototype sat on their lab table, surprisingly small, about the size of a coffee can. We should contact the space agency, Sung suggested as they verified their results for the 20th time. Hannah shook her head. Not yet. We need to understand exactly what we've created and all its implications. If we're wrong, we'll be laughed out of science forever. If we're right, If we're right, everything changes. Tai finished her thought. They continued testing for weeks, refining the technology and documenting everything meticulously. The prototype could create a stable bubble that allowed matter to travel at speeds that seemed impossible. The math checked out. The experiments were repeatable. What had started as a mistake had become the most important scientific breakthrough in human history. One evening, as they were running final checks on their documentation, Dr. Kim looked around at her small team in their modest lab. "Before we go public, I want to say something," she said quietly. "This discovery doesn't belong to any one of us. It doesn't even belong to our university or our country. This belongs to humanity." The others nodded in agreement. "The military and government agencies will want control," Min pointed out. "Once they understand what we've achieved, they'll take over." "That's why our documentation must be perfect," Hannah replied. "So clear and complete that it can't be hidden away or controlled by any single entity." As they prepared to reveal their discovery to the world, Hannah looked at the small device that would change everything. Humanity had just been handed the stars, all because of a tired graduate student's mistake and a team too dedicated to go home at a reasonable hour. Professor Jin joined them for their final review, bringing a bottle of good champagne. "To think," he said as he poured glasses for everyone, "that the greatest breakthrough in physics happened not in some fancy government lab, but in our little university with outdated equipment and a team that nobody was watching." Hannah smiled. Sometimes the best place to make history is where no one expects it to happen. They raised their glasses to toast their achievement, unaware that in just a few short years, human ships would quietly slip between the stars while the rest of the galaxy remained oblivious to humanity's great leap forward. 5 years had passed since Dr. Hannah Kim's team discovered faster-than-light travel. The world had changed, but not in the way most people expected. Captain Du Yun stood on the bridge of the Pathfinder, watching Earth shrink in the view screen. This was his 12th mission beyond the solar system, but the sight of his home planet disappearing still made his heart beat faster. Next to him, his first officer Jin checked the final coordinates. "All systems ready for bubble activation, Captain," Jin reported. Du Yun nodded. "Engage Kim drive." The engineer at the propulsion station pressed the sequence, and for a brief moment, everyone felt a slight twist in their stomachs. The stars on the view screen blurred, then stabilized into new patterns. Earth's sun was now just another distant point of light. They had jumped 22 light years in less than a minute. "Arrival at Kepler 62 confirmed," Jin announced. "All systems normal." Do Yoon smiled. "Let's deliver these supplies and get back on schedule. We have 4 more stops this week." What amazed him most wasn't the technology, though the Kim bubble drive was certainly miraculous, but the secrecy surrounding it. Officially, the Pathfinder was a research vessel testing new propulsion systems in the outer solar system. Officially, human space travel remained limited to Mars colonies and asteroid mining operations. Officially, faster-than-light travel remained theoretical. The reality was very different. After the initial discovery, world leaders had made a surprising decision. Instead of announcing the breakthrough, they agreed to develop it quietly. Astronomers had already detected signals from at least 6 different alien civilizations, some seemingly far more advanced than Earth. Until humanity understood its place in the galactic community, revealing their sudden technological leap seemed unwise. The United Nations Space Administration was formed, operating in the shadows of more public space agencies. Scientists and engineers who worked on the FTL program lived double lives, publicly working on conventional space projects while secretly building humanity's interstellar fleet. 2 days later, the Pathfinder approached the small human settlement on Kepler 62. From orbit, New Busan didn't look impressive, just a cluster of dome structures and agricultural fields surrounding a central hub. But it represented something extraordinary: humanity's first colony around another star. "Settlement in visual range," Jin said. "They're signaling they're ready to receive cargo." As the ship began its descent, Du Yun thought about how strange this double life had become. Last month, he had attended a public ceremony celebrating the launch of a new Mars habitat module. Politicians had given speeches about humanity's bold expansion to the Red Planet. Nobody mentioned the 27 colonies already established around distant stars, or the hundreds of ships like the Pathfinder that traveled between them. The colony's administrator, Sunhai, greeted them at the landing pad. Her face looked tired but happy. "Welcome back," she said, shaking Do Yoon's hand. "You're bringing the medical supplies and the new communication equipment," he confirmed. "How are things here?" "Good. The crops are growing better than expected. We had a baby born last week, the 6th child of New Busan." They walked through the settlement while cargo was unloaded. About 300 people lived here now, most scientists and engineers, but increasingly farmers and teachers too. They were building a real community, not just a research station. "Any contact with the neighbors?" Du Yoon asked quietly when they reached Sunhai's office. She shook her head. "We've detected their signals stronger here. Their nearest outpost seems to be about 12 light years away, but no direct contact." This was the other reason for secrecy. Long-range scans had revealed that at least 3 alien civilizations had outposts or colonies within 50 light years of Earth. None seemed to have faster-than-light technology. Their ships moved at impressive but sublight speeds. Humanity had somehow cracked the ultimate code first, despite being technological newcomers to the galactic scene. Later that evening, as they prepared for departure, Du Yoon received a message from UNSA headquarters. The Pathfinder was being reassigned after completing this supply run. They would join a small fleet mapping potential colony sites in the Cygnus sector. "I heard we're expanding again," Jin said as they watched the sunset on Kepler 62, the alien sky painted purple and orange above them. 20 new settlements planned for next year, Du Yoon confirmed. The shipyards at Jupiter are working at full capacity. 10 new ships launching next month. Jin shook his head in wonder. "And meanwhile, the public news shows keep talking about possible missions to Saturn's moons like that's our big frontier." "It's safer this way," Du Yoon said, though sometimes he questioned the policy. "Until we know more about the other civilizations out there, better to keep our capabilities quiet." The next morning, the Pathfinder lifted off, disappearing into the sky above New Busan. Minutes later, it activated its Kim drive and vanished from the Kepler 62 system, leaving no trace it had ever been there. At UNSA headquarters beneath the lunar surface, Dr. Hannah Kim reviewed the latest fleet reports. Now in her 50s, she remained the leading expert on the technology that bore her name. The wall screen showed the positions of all 347 human ships currently traveling between the stars, and the 31 established colonies on distant worlds. "The Gliese settlement is reporting unusual signal activity," her assistant Ta said, pointing to one blinking light. "They think an alien survey ship might be passing through their system next month." Hannah nodded. "Have them suspend all launches during that period." Standard protocol. 5 years of secret expansion had transformed humanity. While their ships never traveled at speeds that would violate physics, they bent space itself instead. The ability to reach distant stars in days instead of centuries had changed everything. Resources once thought unattainable were now accessible. Knowledge once beyond reach was being collected, and humanity was quietly establishing itself among the stars before anyone noticed. "Sometimes I wonder if we're doing the right thing," Hannah admitted to Ta. "Keeping all this secret." Ta, now a senior administrator himself, understood her concern. "When we meet our neighbors officially, we'll share what we know. But for now, this gives us time to establish ourselves, to become strong enough that we can't be dismissed or dominated." As the Pathfinder continued its journey to the next colony, Captain Do Yoon made a personal log entry. "Another successful delivery," he recorded. "Sometimes I think about how strange our situation is. Human ships travel between the stars while alien civilizations debate whether such travel is even possible. Human colonies grow on distant worlds, while Earth's public focuses on Mars. We're living in two realities at once. The public story of a species taking its first steps beyond its home planet, and the secret truth of a civilization rapidly becoming interstellar. He looked at the stars on his view screen, knowing that around some of them, other intelligent beings were looking outward, unaware that humans were already their neighbors. "I wonder how long we can maintain this silence," he said to the empty room. "And what will happen when it finally breaks?" The massive alien ship appeared in Earth's orbit on a Tuesday morning. It came the old-fashioned way, decelerating from near-light speed over several days, giving Earth plenty of warning about its approach. News channels worldwide broadcast nothing else. Schools closed. Religious leaders offered varied interpretations, and governments, at least publicly, scrambled to prepare for humanity's first official contact with an alien civilization. Behind closed doors, however, a select group of officials simply nodded and activated long-established protocols. Captain Jun Park stood at attention on the landing pad at the United Nations Space Center in Geneva as the alien shuttle descended from orbit. As the head of Earth's most advanced spaceship program, he had been selected to help host the visitors. The silver shuttle touched down with barely a sound, much more elegant than human craft. "Remember," General Kim whispered beside him. "Act impressed but not intimidated." June nodded slightly. He had commanded the interstellar vessel Horizon for 3 years, visiting 7 different star systems before being recalled for this assignment. Playing the role of a captain who had never left the solar system would be his most challenging mission yet. The shuttle door opened and 5 beings emerged. They walked on 2 legs and had 2 arms, but their blue-gray skin and large, dark eyes marked them as clearly non-human. They wore simple white uniforms with different colored symbols on their chests. The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am Ambassador Nock of the Galactic Cooperative. We come in peace and friendship to formally welcome humanity to the greater community of intelligent species." World leaders stepped forward to greet the visitors. After formal welcomes, the human delegation led their guests inside for the official reception. June followed, maintaining a professional expression while his mind raced. After years of detecting signals and watching from a distance, direct contact was finally happening. During the reception, Ambassador Nock approached June. "Captain Park, I understand you command Earth's most advanced vessel, the Explorer." "Yes, Ambassador," June replied, remembering his briefing. "The Explorer can reach Mars in just 30 days. This was a lie. The Explorer was a conventional ship that served as a cover for the real space program, but it matched the public story. Impressive for your level of development," Nock said with what appeared to be a kind smile. "Our ships can travel at 95% light speed. Perhaps one day we can help you achieve similar technology." June noticed the slight condescension in the alien's tone. "That would be remarkable," he replied with practiced amazement. "Currently, we can only dream of such speeds." Later that day, June led a tour of Earth's space facilities for the alien delegation. They visited the launch center, the astronaut training facility, and the mission control room. All real, but all part of the public space program rather than the secret one that spanned dozens of star systems. "And these are your most advanced engines?" Ambassador Nock asked, examining the conventional fusion rockets on display. "Yes," June lied smoothly. "We're quite proud of their efficiency." Another alien, introduced as Science Officer Pell, studied the engines. "Interesting approach. With some modifications, these could be 15% more efficient." "That would be tremendous progress for us," June replied, knowing that the engines in the hidden fleet were hundreds of times more advanced than these decoys. As the tour continued, Ambassador Nock placed a hand on June's shoulder in a gesture that seemed almost parental. "Captain, I sense you are ambitious. You must find it frustrating to be limited to your solar system, while the galaxy teems with wonders." "We take pride in our accomplishments," June said carefully. "Mars has been challenging enough." "Of course," Nock replied. "But imagine traveling to other stars, seeing other worlds. The cooperative includes 23 species across hundreds of systems. Perhaps in a century or two, humans might join us in exploring beyond your neighborhood. It took all of June's military discipline not to react. The human colony on Ta City was celebrating its 4th anniversary next month. The Horizon, his former command, had mapped more than 30 habitable worlds. Yet here he stood, pretending to be awed by the possibility of someday reaching nearby stars. That would be the dream of every human explorer, he said, maintaining his facade of wide-eyed wonder. That evening, after the aliens returned to their orbiting ship, Jun sat alone in his secure office at the UNSA hidden facility beneath the Geneva complex. He composed a simple encrypted message to lunar headquarters. How long more? The response came within minutes. 3 more months. Keep smiling. Jun understood the timeline. 3 more months of pretending, of showing appropriate amazement at alien technology the humans had already matched or surpassed. 3 months of playing the role of a species confined to its home system. The next morning brought a formal meeting between Earth's scientific community and the alien delegation. Ambassador Nock proudly presented information about their propulsion technology. Our near-light speed drives are the fastest in known space, the ambassador explained as holographic diagrams appeared above the conference table. They allow our ships to reach nearby stars in just years rather than centuries. Dr. Lee, Earth's leading public physicist, examined the diagrams with genuine interest. Although she knew about the Kim drive, she had never seen how other civilizations approached the speed problem. Fascinating, she said truthfully. Your approach to space-time is quite different from our theoretical models. Science Officer Pell seemed pleased. Your models show promise, but you're missing key insights about quantum field manipulation. With guidance, you might develop similar technology in just a few decades. Several human scientists exchanged subtle glances. The Kim drive worked on entirely different principles, not pushing against space-time but folding it. The aliens' technology, while impressive, was fundamentally limited by relativity in ways humanity had already overcome. After the presentation, Ambassador Nock offered a technological exchange program. We would be pleased to help humanity advance, the ambassador said. It is the policy of the cooperative to assist developing civilizations. President Garcia thanked the ambassador graciously. Earth would be honored to learn from your experience. That night, at a formal dinner in the United Nations building, Jun found himself seated beside Science Officer Pell. The alien was more perceptive than his colleagues. Your people hide their reactions well, Captain, Pell said quietly. But I sense not everyone was as impressed by our technology as they appeared. Jun chose his words carefully. Different cultures express enthusiasm differently. I assure you, Earth recognizes how advanced your civilization is. Pell studied him. Perhaps, or perhaps humans are more complex than our preliminary studies suggested. Later, alone in his quarters, Jun reviewed the day's events. The aliens seemed genuinely interested in establishing diplomatic relations. They had been respectful, if somewhat condescending. And they clearly had no idea that human ships had been passing their borders for years, or that Earth had already established a small but growing interstellar presence. He wondered how the galactic community would react when humanity finally revealed the truth. Would they be accepted as equals, or would the deception damage relations? The policy of secrecy had made sense when humans knew nothing about their galactic neighbors, but now that formal contact had been made, maintaining the facade felt increasingly awkward. His communication device chimed with a secure message from General Kim. You're doing well. Ambassador Nock reports they find humans charming and promising. Keep them thinking that way. 3 months will pass quickly. Jun sighed and prepared for another day of pretending to be amazed by technology his own ship had surpassed years ago. He reminded himself that there were good reasons for the charade. Strategic, cultural, protective. Still, he looked forward to the day when humanity could finally step onto the galactic stage as they truly were. The emergency alert came in the middle of Earth's night. A neutron star collision near Proxima Centauri was creating a massive radiation wave that would soon hit multiple star systems. The wave would destroy everything in its path, including colonies belonging to 6 different alien civilizations. Over 5 billion lives were at risk. Captain Jun Park was awakened by the urgent message. As the commander of the UNSA Starpath, one of humanity's largest vessels, he had been expecting this call. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had detected the neutron star's dangerous movement weeks ago. The UNSA had been quietly preparing for the disaster ever since. "Captain, the Galactic Council has called an emergency session," said his communications officer. "They're discussing evacuation plans now." June nodded and quickly dressed in his formal uniform. "Is the fleet ready?" "Yes, sir. All 12 ships are on standby, fully equipped with temporary life support and medical facilities." 3 months had passed since the aliens had first contacted Earth. During that time, humanity had continued its charade of being a single-system civilization, while the visitors established an embassy and introduced Earth to the wider galactic community. Now, the deception was about to end. On the main view screen, Jun could see the emergency Galactic Council session already in progress. Ambassadors from 23 species spoke in urgent, panicked tones. Ambassador Nock was trying to maintain order. "Our fastest ships can reach the affected systems in 43 days, a Reptilian Council member was saying. "But the radiation wave will hit in 30 days. We cannot evacuate everyone in time." "The Proxima colony has over 3 billion citizens," another alien added. "The Barnard star settlements have nearly 2 billion more. Even with all available ships, we cannot move that many people before the wave hits." Ambassador Nock looked grim. "We must prioritize. Perhaps we can evacuate the young and build shelters for the others." The aliens were calculating acceptable losses now, talking about millions of deaths as if they were inevitable. Jun had heard enough. He nodded to his communications officer. "Open a channel to the council," he ordered. The officer hesitated. "Sir, we haven't received authorization from." "I'm authorizing it," Jun said firmly. "It's time." On the Galactic Council screen, a new transmission window suddenly appeared. The alien delegates looked confused as Captain Jun Park's face appeared before them. "This is Captain Park of the United Nations Space Administration vessel Starpath," he announced calmly. "We have been monitoring your emergency session. There is no need for panic. Humanity will assist with the evacuation." The council chamber erupted in confusion. Ambassador Nock stepped forward. "Captain Park, how are you transmitting to the council? And what do you mean, assist? Your ships cannot reach the affected systems in time." Jun remained calm. "Ambassador, with respect, the situation is already being addressed. If you check with your colonies in the Proxima Centauri system, you'll find that evacuation is already underway." There was a long moment of silence. Then one of the alien delegates received a message and looked up in shock. "Impossible, but I'm receiving confirmation. Unknown ships have appeared at our Proxima colony. They're evacuating our people." More confirmations came in rapidly. Unknown ships had appeared at all the threatened systems simultaneously. They were loading residents and essential supplies with remarkable efficiency. Jun spoke again. "The UNSA has deployed 12 vessels to the affected systems. These ships have sufficient capacity to evacuate all residents before the radiation wave arrives." Ambassador Knox stared at the human captain. "This is impossible. No known technology could reach those systems in time. Proxima Centauri is over 4 light-years from Earth." 4 light-years, 3 days' journey at our standard speeds, Jun replied matter-of-factly. "Ambassador, humanity has had faster-than-light capabilities for nearly a decade." The council chamber fell completely silent. Jun continued, "We've been monitoring the situation since the neutron stars began their collision course. Our ships were in position and ready to act when the emergency was declared." Ambassador Nock found his voice again. "You claim to have faster-than-light technology. And you've hidden this from the galactic community. We preferred to understand our neighborhood before announcing our presence, June explained. The UNSA Starpath, which I command, is currently in orbit around the fourth planet of the Proxima Centauri system. Would you like a direct visual confirmation? The view on the council screens changed to show the Starpath, a massive ship unlike anything in the alien fleet, hovering above a blue-green planet. Behind it, long lines of local residents were boarding transport shuttles in an orderly fashion. "This is impossible," Science Officer Pell muttered, though everyone could hear him. "We've been visiting Earth for months. We saw their technology. They had chemical rockets and primitive fusion drives." "You saw what we showed you," Jun said simply. "Just as we've seen your outposts and colonies for years without your knowledge." The alien delegates broke into urgent discussions. Some looked afraid, others angry. Ambassador Nock raised his hands for silence. "Captain Park," the ambassador said carefully, "how many star systems has humanity reached?" "I'm not authorized to share the full extent of our presence," Jun replied. "But I can tell you we have mapped over 200 potentially habitable worlds and established permanent settlements on 43 planets." One of the alien delegates stood up in alarm. "They've been secretly colonizing the galaxy. This is a violation of cooperative law." June's expression remained calm. "We've been careful to avoid worlds with signs of intelligent life or claimed by other civilizations. Our settlements are on previously unoccupied planets." A status report appeared on June's personal screen. He glanced at it, then addressed the council again. "The evacuation of the Proxima colonies is now 60% complete. We expect to have all sentients relocated within 36 hours, well before the radiation wave arrives. We have established temporary housing on secure planets outside the danger zone." The silence that followed was broken by Ambassador Nuck's quiet question. "How did you get there?" June's smile contained no mockery, only warmth. "We've been neighbors for quite some time now." In the hours that followed, the true scope of humanity's technological achievement became clear to the Galactic Council. Human ships moved between star systems in days rather than years. They operated with an efficiency that stunned even the most advanced alien civilizations. From his position on the bridge of the Starpath, Jun watched as another transport shuttle full of Proxima residents docked with his ship. The alien families looked frightened and confused, but also grateful. Children from 3 different species played together in the designated recreation area, seemingly unconcerned about the differences in their appearance. "Sir," his first officer reported, "we've received word from the council. They're sending representatives to each evacuation site to coordinate with our teams." June nodded. "Good. We could use their help with cultural and medical specifics." "They also want to inspect our drive systems," the officer added. Science Officer Pell specifically requested permission to visit the Starpath. "That was expected," Jun said. "Prepare our public briefing on the Kim drive. Basic principles only for now. We'll share more as formal agreements are reached." As he looked out at the planet below, Jun felt a weight lifting. For years, humanity had lived a double life: the public face of a single-system civilization and the private reality of an interstellar society. The deception had served its purpose, giving Earth time to establish itself among the stars. But it had also been exhausting and increasingly difficult to maintain. Now, as the Starpath continued its evacuation mission, human ships no longer needed to hide. Soon, they would travel openly between the stars, acknowledged members of the galactic community. There would be challenges ahead, diplomatic tensions to resolve, trust to rebuild, agreements to negotiate. But the crisis had forced humanity's hand in the best possible way. By saving billions of lives, they had revealed their secret in a manner no one could object to. As June prepared to welcome Science Officer Pell aboard the Starpath, he looked forward to finally having an honest conversation about humanity's place among the stars. The grand hall of the Lunar Conference Center gleamed under soft lights. Through the transparent dome ceiling, Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black sky. Around a circular table sat representatives from 27 different spacefaring civilizations. Some had tentacles, others wings. Some breathed methane, others hydrogen. All wore translation devices to understand each other. At the center of the table stood Dr. Hannah Kim. Her hair had turned white, and age had bent her small frame, but her eyes remained sharp and clear. At 74, she still understood the technology that bore her name better than anyone else in human space. "Welcome to Luna," she said simply. "Thank you for coming to this historic summit." 3 months had passed since the Proxima Centauri crisis, after human ships had saved billions of lives with their faster-than-light technology. The Galactic Council had moved from shock to intense curiosity. Some species reacted with fear, others with excitement. All wanted to understand how humans had achieved what their own scientists had declared impossible. "Today we begin sharing what we've learned about faster-than-light travel," Dr. Kim continued. "We call it the Kim Bubble Drive, though that name embarrasses me a bit." Ambassador Nock, now serving as council chairman, leaned forward. "Before we discuss the technology, many still question why humanity kept this breakthrough secret while making contact with our civilization." Dr. Kim nodded. "A fair question. We didn't keep it secret out of malice or fear. We simply needed to understand it ourselves before we could teach others." She walked slowly around the table, looking at each alien representative. "When we accidentally discovered the bubble effect, we didn't even believe it ourselves. We needed time to test it, to make sure it was safe, to understand its limits. Then, as we detected your signals and realized we weren't alone in the galaxy, we became cautious." "You spied on us," said a reptilian delegate. "We observed," Dr. Kim corrected gently, "just as you've observed Earth for decades. We needed to understand the neighborhood we were entering." Ta Li, now Dr. Li, stepped forward with a small device in his hands. Once Hannah's student, he was now a respected scientist with silver streaks in his dark hair. "This is a training model of the drive," he explained. "Not functional, but it demonstrates the principles." He activated the device. Above the table, a holographic display showed quantum fields bending and folding. "The key insight was that we don't break the light-speed barrier," Dr. Kim explained. "We bend space itself to bring destinations closer. The math is complex, but the concept is actually quite simple." For the next 3 hours, the human scientists explained their discovery in terms their alien colleagues could understand. Some of the more advanced species grasped the concepts quickly, while others struggled with ideas that contradicted their established physics. During a break, Ambassador Nock approached Dr. Kim as she rested in a chair overlooking the lunar landscape. "Your technology will change everything," he said. "Some council members fear that." Dr. Kim smiled. "Change always brings fear, but it also brings possibility. Why offer it freely?" Nock asked. "You could have demanded concessions, territory, resources. What would be the point?" she replied. "The universe has enough for everyone. Besides, each of your civilizations will improve the technology in ways we haven't imagined. We'll all benefit more from cooperation than competition." When the session resumed, Dr. Kim addressed the security concerns that several delegates had raised. "Yes, this technology could be weaponized," she acknowledged. "Any technology can be. That's why we're proposing a galactic transit authority to establish protocols for its use." The proposal sparked intense debate. Some species wanted tight controls, others demanded equal access for all. The discussion continued late into the lunar night, with tempers occasionally flaring. Finally, a small blue delegate who had been quiet throughout the proceedings spoke. "My species has traveled the stars for 10,000 years, she said in a musical voice. "We have seen civilizations rise and fall. What humans offer today is not just technology, it is a new beginning." Her words calmed the room. Slowly, a consensus began to form. The technology would be shared, but with agreements on its proper use. No single species would control it. All members of the galactic community would have access, provided they agreed to peaceful navigation principles. As the summit entered its final day, Dr. Kim and Dr. Lee prepared to demonstrate a working miniature drive. The device, about the size of a small box, sat on the table. "This is the same design my team created in our university lab 10 years ago," Dr. Kim explained. "The principles remain unchanged, though our implementation has improved." Dr. Lee activated the drive. A small model spacecraft inside a transparent container seemed to shimmer, then instantly moved from one side to the other. "The first time we saw this happen, we couldn't believe our eyes," Dr. Kim said with a smile. "Ta here," Dr. Lee, "thought our instruments were malfunctioning." The aliens watched in amazement as the demonstration continued. Even those who understood the theory seemed awed by seeing it in action. "Within 6 months, we can begin the knowledge transfer to your engineering teams," Dr. Kim continued. "Within a year, the first non-human Kim drives should be operational. Within 5 years, I believe every spacefaring species will have this capability." As the summit concluded, the delegates gathered for a final ceremony. The document establishing the Galactic Transit Authority had been signed by all 27 civilizations. Humanity was appointed to lead the technology transfer, while other species would contribute their expertise in various aspects of implementation. After the formal proceedings, Dr. Kim stood by the great window, looking out at the stars. Ambassador Nock joined her. "You've given us the greatest gift one civilization can offer another," he said. Dr. Kim shook her head. "Not a gift. A shared discovery. The universe has always been there, waiting for us all to explore it together." Across the room, Dr. Lee was deep in conversation with scientists from 3 different worlds, drawing equations on a digital display. Already, the collaboration was yielding new insights. Ambassador Nock looked thoughtful. There was a faction in the council that wanted to punish humanity for its deception. They suggested restrictions, penalties. "And now?" Dr. Kim asked. "Now they understand what your Captain Park meant when he said you've been neighbors all along. You weren't conquering or claiming. You were exploring, learning, preparing." The elderly physicist smiled as she watched the diverse beings around the room. Some had evolved on worlds of ice, others in seas of methane. Some came from ancient civilizations millions of years old, others were relative newcomers like humanity. Yet all shared the same wonder when looking at the stars. "The universe just got smaller," she said quietly, "but our potential has never been greater." As the summit ended and the delegates prepared to return to their worlds, many now planning to upgrade their ships with the new drive technology, Dr. Kim took one last look at Earth through the window. She thought about that night in her lab a decade ago, when a tired graduate student's mistake had changed everything. In the end, it wasn't the technology that mattered most. It was the bridges being built between worlds, the shared future opening before them all. "Welcome to the neighborhood we've all been sharing all along," she said softly as the stars glimmered above the lunar surface. "The journey is just beginning." The end.